Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our second week installation to the UND Aviation Industry Speaker Series. We're very excited to be able to bring all of these guest speakers to you, albeit virtually through this mode of communication. So tonight we're very excited. We're hosting a panel of not only Delta airline pilots, but UND alum that are going to share with you their journey to how they got to where they are in their careers. So joining us this evening will be Captain Karen Ruth. Karen graduated from UND in 1982. She is currently a captain on the A330 at Delta Airlines, as well as a line check airman. She's also a 2018 inductee into the UNDAerospace Hall of Fame. So we're excited to have her with us this evening. We also have First Officer Dave Barnes. Dave Barnes graduated in 2001 and is currently flying the 7576 aircraft for Delta. Dave also serves as our president of our UND Aviation Alumni Advisory Board, which is a very active group of about 40 alumni that give us guidance, insights into the industry, work with students, and provide some of that oversight. So excited to have him. And last but not least, we have First Officer Jared Herndon. Jared graduated in 2008 from the University of North Dakota. He also flies a 7576 for Delta. And an interesting fact, he was the 2008 SAMA conference director. And so again, as we go into April, I know our SAMA students, hopefully many are with us this evening, we're planning diligently for one of our strongest traditions within the college, hosting the SAMA Career Fair and Conference. Not only do these three alumni individuals give back their talents to us and giving us guidance, insights, working with students, they also are all strong supporters of our aviation scholarship program. Captain Ruth through the Mock Scholarship, Dave Barnes through the Alumni Foundation Scholarship, and Jared has his own scholarship set up. So I know many of you have applied for our aviation department scholarships, and I know now more than ever we need and appreciate that support. So I do want to make sure we also thank these three individuals for also supporting our students through that mechanism as well. So without further ado, I think we're going to turn it over kind of based on seniority and have Captain Ruth start sharing her story.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the speaker series. We have named our presentation Unexpected Turbulence, and rightly so, because it's a little bit of education to you about some of the unplanned adversity that we've experienced during the 3 of our careers. It has been a turbulent time, but I'm here to say it's also been quite wonderful. So like Elizabeth said, I'll go first because of my 35 years seniority. So we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about me and then we'll press on. So like Beth said, I am a 330 captain based in Minneapolis. I'm also an instructor for new first officers and new captains. In the past, I was a in-command facilitator, which in a nutshell is a captain leadership course that talks about decision-making and leadership skills. I've been an interviewer at both Northwest Airlines and Delta, and currently I'm a Delta Propel Pathway liaison between Delta and University. So let's go to the next slide and we'll talk about my time at UND. At UND, 1982, I know, you can stop laughing right now, but that's me. This is my senior year. I started in 79, and 3.5 years later, I graduated with a double major and a minor. I did add a summer school session in there, and then I stuck around for another 6 months after graduations to just build flight time and do some instructing, which was very valuable. So right after I left UND for the year of 1983, I worked for Schwann's Ice Cream. I call that the job that I had about 20 pounds ago because I would fly executives around to meetings and they would have me sample ice cream and pizza. Pretty fun job. Then I worked for Midwest Aviation flying a twin engine Queen Air, and I got my seaplane rating at the same time that summer and flew fishing charters about 1,000 miles north of Winnipeg. So those were some of the things that I did to build time. Okay, next slide. Now we're going to escalate to my first real commuter pilot job. This is 1984, and I purposely picked out this slide because it's a distance shot because I'm still carrying that extra 20 pounds and I've got a bad perm there. But either way, it was a great job. I worked there for exactly 1 year, flying the mighty Twin Otter. And it was such a crazy time there. Everybody was hiring. I upgraded to captain in 4 months. So at the end of that 1 year, I started to flood the market with my resume, and I just sent it out everywhere. And we'll go to the next slide. And this is the springtime of 1985. It was a feeding frenzy of interviews. In the course of 2 weeks, I had 5 job offers. I would run through the terminal in Minneapolis and Pittsburgh and high five my friends that were running off to various interviews. And I would say, hey, where are you going? And they'd say United. And I'd say, well, I'm going to Eastern. And we, wish each other good luck. And sure enough, I got 5 jobs. And that's just because everybody was doing this. It was a hiring crazy time. Very much how it was just a month ago before coronavirus tipped its ugly hat here. So a little side note here, on there, I didn't add Northwest or Delta because they had given me a letter saying, hey, we love your application, but call us back next year when you're more competitive. So the funny thing is they got me anyway. So just because you start at one airline doesn't mean you're going to end up there. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. And here I am, a very, very happy new hire, brand spanking new, flying the Convair 580. The Convair 580 was almost like an airline within an airline. It pretty much left us alone. We were flying around this jumbo-sized turboprop, and it was a blast. So that was my first choice. I didn't really go into why I chose Republic, but United Airlines at the time was on strike. American Airlines had a pretty bad B scale, which was a kind of a subpar pay scale for new hires. Eastern was on the downturn, and Sun Country, I babysat for the owner, so I know why I got that job. Okay, so let's fast forward to the next slide here. 1 year later, we had the merger with Northwest and Republic. So I have a lot of uniforms in my closet, and I'm just saying they keep getting bigger and better. Now, Northwest was the acquiring airline. So in that case, when you get acquired, you pretty much implement the policies, procedures, and checklists of the airline that bought you. That was the case with this merger. It did take quite a while for us to acclimate and blend our cultures. And I'm telling you, it wasn't that pretty. The merger that comes up later in my career was a lot better. So this took a while, and there was a lot of growing pains. All right, let's blast over to the next slide to 1987. 1 year later, after the merger, Northwest had the worst accident in its history. And it was because the flaps weren't set for takeoff. So one thing that I really like to emphasize, especially when I was a facilitator in the new captain's class, is that the most critical phase of flight that we have in all of our phases is pre-departure. And that is when all the threats are coming at you. 85% of the threats on any flight happen before you even left the ground. So if there's ever a time for you to really pay attention, it's on the ground. This particular airplane was totally full. The captain's, one of his good friends was in the jump seat. So there's a lot of distraction there, and this is the result. Very, very sad day. Okay, next slide. These two yahoos, oh my gosh, they came in and bought Northwest because Northwest was very highly sought after as a takeover target. Because the assets they had at Northwest, all the airplanes were bought and paid for. So these guys were just to grab Northwest, and as a result, the following years, They lost $300 million in revenue. And the state of Minnesota and eventually had to bail them out because they were just robbing all the assets. So I don't know. These two guys, not my friend. All right, next slide. Okay, because in 1993 started some of the bankruptcy talks because of all the debt from Mr. Checky and Mr. Wilson leaving the assets. So in 1998, I was actually just outside of this picture. I was one of those pilots that was holding the banner, marching in the strike line there, because we were out for 15 days. 6,150 Northwest pilots went on strike, and that was a lot of union unrest at the time. Big losses for the airline because when you're not flying, there's no revenue, much like what you're seeing today. Okay, right after this strike, 2000, next slide, was the dot-com bubble burst. Business travel plunged. The net worth of Northwest Airlines was also in trouble again. New internet business are flying up every day, but they're failing left and right. Everyone wanted to try out this new internet thing, so that also generated a lot of loss for revenue for Northwest. Okay, let's go to 2001, next slide. Super sad day for everyone. I will never forget where I was on this day. Hundreds of people died, oh my gosh, but also hundreds of pilots furloughed for up to 5-6 years. Passengers were afraid to fly because of the terrorist threat. And, you know, everybody remembers this day. It was just terrible. Okay, let's go to the next slide. 2003, SARS. This virus lasted 6 months. Started in China. It was found in the nocturnal animals like civets, which is kind of like a cat-like animal, bats, raccoons, dogs, badgers. This virus affected a lot of our Asia flights. And if you know Northwest, we did a lot of Asia flights. A lot of our 747s and DC-10s were affected. Okay, in 2004, the pilots did take a 15% pay cut. And then when we go to the next slide, you'll see that our mechanics went on strike. There were 4,439 mechanics that called a strike for 15 months. Here again, now the passengers are thinking, do I really want to fly? Who's minding the store? Who's fixing our airplanes? Because they really didn't know if these contract maintenance people were as good. They were, but it just took some time to spool them up to the procedures that were in place. Okay, then we come to 2007, next slide. This is where Northwest went in bankruptcy. I mentioned earlier that I took a 15% pay cut. Well, now I had another pay cut. I had a 24% pay cut over and above my 15, so that's just a little bit over 39%, and they froze my pension. So this was a dark, dark day, because now I'm just a little bit under half of my pay is gone. So husband goes back to work, 2 young kids at home. It was a stressful time. Okay, 2008, next slide. We got the merger with Delta and Northwest. Here again, Delta acquired Northwest, got a new uniform, got a new set of epaulets, and now this merger would have to go down in history as probably the best merger on the books so far. Best managed, much less painful than the first merger. But tell you what, I'm getting good at them. 2 different cultures, took some time, but we got there, and I'll tell you what, success story. Okay, next slide. Then we hit the recession, worst one since the 30s. This is when all the subprime mortgages started to show their ugly face. They were giving loans to people that traditionally would never have qualified for a loan. So there were huge financial losses and approximately 8 million people out of work. Passengers not flying because they're saving money by doing their conference calls on the web. So 50% of the current employees at Delta Airlines right now, we remember this time. It was ugly. Okay, and this affects the bottom line. All right, go ahead to the next slide. Now, we had a pretty good run from 2009 to 2014. Everything is growing. Delta's management's doing an excellent job. We're making money hand over fist, and then Ebola sets in. So this also was an animal-borne virus originating in bats, apes, monkeys, transmitted through blood, tissue, and other fluids. So if you touch somebody living or dead, this could be your result. It was very effective, affecting my career because I was flying to Africa. I was doing Accra, Ghana, Lagos, Nigeria, and Monrovia. So they used to call me the African Queen. So I started to notice this. My flights were getting empty, and that affects the bottom line. All right, next slide. Now we have coronavirus. This is the unknown outcome. We're working it hard. We are doing everything we can to do what we call cash preservation. That's the mode we're in now, although Delta realizes that essential service is required and we will continue that. We have roughly 900 some airplanes and about 600, let's go to the next slide. 600 of those airplanes are sitting in one of these parking lots right here. I would call them at the ready. As soon as we're ready to get back flying, our mechanics are just awesome. They'll get these things going right back as soon as we possibly can. So we're using Victorville, some other places in the desert. We're parking them all around the system, but we're very hopeful that this will come to a quick end. All right, so students ask me all the time, what can I do right now during this downtime? Well, I'm just going to give you some advice, and I know Dave and Jared are going to do the same. But please remember, be a continuous learner, stay competent, have some financial discipline. Ask yourself, do I really need this right now? Start saving money, even if it's only $10 a paycheck. It will add up. You don't need to buy a new Tesla. You know, don't buy new. Get a used car. Have an emergency fund. Get ahead on your downtime. Go ahead and get your written exams knocked out. I've got 2 daughters. One of them is working on her instrument rating, and the very first day that she's available to take her written is April 10th. She's the first one on the docket to get that done. Be proactive on your distance learning. Don't use this time to just strictly catch up on Netflix. Get out there and add your resume. I would get your older neighbors, help them out. You can't leave the house. This is a huge resume builder. Like I mentioned, I was an interviewer for 25 years. One of the very first things I looked at on your application is, what else do you do besides fly? Are you interesting? Are you a good citizen? Are you helping or volunteering involved in your community? This looks great on interviews. Call your grandparents. Remember, they're housebound. So I just want to leave you with a couple of final quotes here. That in aviation's, airplanes can experience unexpected turbulence despite careful observance of the weather. And so it is in life. No matter how well you plan and organize your life, you will need to adjust and make changes to the situations that are much beyond your control, like this. And there's one thing I'm going to end with. Our CEO had a wonderful quote from yesterday. He was talking to his 90,000 employees, and he says, crisis is not built on character, but crisis reveals character. So everybody, let's step it up and get through this together. We're not in this alone. Everybody is suffering. Okay? All right, now I'm going to turn it over to one of my compatriots. Dave, I think you're up next. Oh, one last thing. These are my 2 girls. And this is why I'm so passionate about this. The girl on the right is at UND. She's a freshman. She got her private license last year. The other one got her private pilot's last year. I feel the pain here. I just grabbed her out of McVeigh Hall last week. We unloaded her. She's sad. Some of her best friends are at UND. This is her second family. So we're going to do everything in our power to get them back, because you know what you girls have? You have time. Time is your benefit. And all the students at UND, we're going to get through this. We're going to be a stronger airline. We might be a little bit smaller in the beginning, but we're going to come through this. And they're going full guns, because this is a job and a career and a pastime that's fun and exciting, exhilarating, and it's not to be taken for granted. Okay, now Dave, it's your turn.
Well, thank you for everything you said, Captain Karen. Ruth, that was very informative indeed. See if I can get my picture to pop up. I'm not sure if it's working yet, but again, my name is David Barnes. I want to personally thank everyone for tuning in and logging on to this pretty amazing experience to hear from real life people and alumni out in the industry. Got hired with Delta Airlines in 2014, so about 6 years ago. I flew the 717 for a year, and then I flew the 737 for 2.5 years. And then currently on the 75767, been flying this for about 2.5 years as well. A lot of what I'm going to say echoes Karen, which is good because it shows that the message is pure. You all came up with the same information. So as most of us has also done, we developed a passion for aviation at a very young age. When I was growing up in high school, my uncle was a squadron commander for the Hurricane Hunters. Eyeglasses, contacts kept me out of aviation, so that was kind of a turbulent time to start with. Like, well, that stinks. I want to do military. What else do I do? But as we all go through these, we're going to talk about very different turbulent and stressful times. But just always know that the unknown is something not to be afraid of, but it's something you must continually prepare for and be ready to adapt for. And my theme tonight, we're going to talk about having a positive attitude, how that can benefit you, not to be idle, and try to diversify your portfolio. So I'll be coming back to those again. But those who were able to tune in yesterday, the Dean's Office SAC forum was incredible. A lot of great information was shared, both from on campus and as well as airport personnel. And Beth said, later it'll be available on YouTube, UNDAerospace channel, so make sure you check that out. So my first thing was, don't be idle. And our Chief Flight Instructor, Jim Raisler, hit it perfectly. He recommended yesterday to always be prepared and return to get back to work. Be ready to come back for your flight lessons. Don't be idle. Prepared, be ready for your check rides. Just like Karen's daughter, get ready for your FAA written exams, because it'll be easy to prepare now when you have free time. So when it comes time to do those, you'll be prepared. Following Jeremy was the Director of Flight Operations, Dick Schultz. And this surprised me. You know, the doors are shut for students, but UNDAerospace is very hopping, staying busy. He shared that UNDAerospace continues a lot of hard work with prepping the fleet. They're connecting some early engine changes, making sure all the planes are tip-top conditions. So whenever it comes back, they'll be clean. Some policies be changed, and even records is all getting caught up with a lot of backup paperwork. So when you guys get back, it should be streamlined pretty well. Everyone's anxious to get going again, get the Sioux birds up in the air. But again, trust in UND's leadership, as they've had experience with similar turbulent times before, and they know they have the knowledge they've acquired, and they have the resources put in place. And it was great seeing these webinars and Zoom and so forth. Right away, UNDAerospace had these up and running. It goes along with their online programs that they have as well. The futures really are in good hands during these very turbulent and stressful times. So a little more about my background. I grew up in Grinnell, Iowa. It's a small city. So 1996, the beginning of my senior year, I found out I couldn't do military with my glasses contacts. So I looked around and tried to, like everyone else, what do I want to do with my career? What do I do with my life? I either would be a pilot, a ship captain, or a train engineer. So pilot one out of those three. So my family, my parents loaded up our minivan. We drove from Iowa up to Grand Forks. We toured and immediately fell in love with Grand Forks, UND, and UNDAerospace. And during our tour, I always love sharing this with students. We're walking around the dean's office up in the area, and John Odegaard comes out. Well, hello, you must be a prospective student. Come to my office. Let's come have a chat. So we spent 40 minutes with John Odegaard. And it was interesting. It's not why you should come to UNDAerospace. It's why UNDAerospace would be a good fit for you. Obviously, once people get up and tour the facilities and see everything, it's hard not to fall in love with the place. So I applied, got accepted in 1996. Life was good. So later on in 1996, during my senior year, I hit my first unexpected turbulence even before my professional aviation career began. Anyone around the Red River Valley definitely remembers 96 and 97. Let's touch this for a little bit. So I wasn't there during the floods. I was there after the floods. So in late 96, they had very heavy rains, storm after storm, just an immense amount of water filling all the tributaries, the lakes, the rivers, the ponds. And soon after that, there was a really hard early freeze, which trapped all that rainwater under the ground, had nowhere to go. So all this water's trapped, and now you had storm after storm, blizzard after blizzard, dumping record amounts of snowfall. So by the time early spring came in 97, the spring happened fast. It warmed up really fast. For the Red River that goes through Grand Forks, the National Weather Service's averages, it's about 18 feet. In 1997, it crested at 54 feet, which is it's pretty amazing. This top picture you can see is Demers Avenue. It's a bridge. It leads to where Cabela's was going to be built. You can see that plaque. So next time you go over Demers, take a look at that plaque and then look down way below you and see how low the water is. I mean, that's 54 feet. It's a lot of power, a lot of water moving through there. The bottom picture, that's downtown Grand Forks. We always found that interesting. You have all this water, but there's a fire. There's no electricity. How do you put a fire out? They couldn't get there. The trucks weren't big enough to plow through the water. So as you can see, they brought water bombers in. And they also brought a big Grand Forks Air Force Base rescue fire truck from the airport that they brought on a loader and got as close as they could and to help put the fire out eventually. This definitely affected UND and UNDAerospace. But the National Weather Service has teamed up with UNDAerospace's Atmospheric Sciences Department, and together they had forecast modeling and they shared facilities. So it was a good experience for everyone there. Classes were canceled back then. They're not doing what we're doing now. So at that time, classes were canceled, students were sent home, and school was done. There was very limited internet back then, and online learning was not really at a collegiate level quite yet. We didn't have Zoom meetings, we didn't have YouTube or Netflix, and there's no Facebook, so it was pretty boring. But for me, my big question, being a high school senior in Iowa, and seeing all the news reports, would I have a college to attend in a few months? This was a very turbulent and stressful time indeed. Here in Grand Forks, a large pillar, you can see that down by the river, and that's how high the water crested on the top. You can see 1997. So next time you're taking a bike ride or you're down there, go take a look and stand under it. It's pretty neat. So as you can see here, shortly after the floods, the cleanup happened. Everyone helped each other. During my whole freshman year in freshman orientation, as we drove around the city, I can vividly remember a dark water line in the Wilkerson lobby. It was a few feet up from the ground, and that's where the English coulee had crested. It's just amazing seeing, you know, street after street of people helping each other, the university, the community, the state, Canadians coming down, everyone just pitching in to help get everything back in line, never expecting anything in return, and that makes Grand Forks a special place. So it definitely still feels like home all these years later. So I start my freshman year in 1997, just after the floods. Classes were all up and running. All this incoming freshmen from out of state were just amazed it was all running well. So I was in Aviation 100, and this is a class, my first aviation class. It's called Aviation Orientation. And Ken Polovitz, as the assistant dean, was teaching. And he gave us a couple things that I've always taken to heart. The first thing is he challenged us to get involved, and that helps diversify your portfolio. Interacting with different groups, different people makes you a much more rounded person for the future. He said, not just UNDAerospace, but get involved with UND, your community. And then he shared 2 facts in aviation, and since then I've heard him repeat it, but this is the first time I've heard him. So fact number 1, if the only constant in aviation is that things change. And fact number 2, if you don't like the aviation industry, just wait 5 to 10 years because the industry will continue to evolve and push the development of new technologies. As I look back on my years from 97, that's been very true every 5 to 10 years. And as Captain Ruth was sharing, that cycle continues, the ups and downs. Unfortunately, we're in a down right now, but it'll definitely continue. So how can I get ahead? Well, I heard everyone talking about uni summer sessions where you can get more flight courses done. They're accelerated. You can get more general eds done. Also, for me, as a non-reciprocity Iowa resident, staying for a year in North Dakota, having a mailing address, I became a North Dakota resident and saved me a lot of money, which I put that money right back into flying airplanes. So summer sessions are great. The top picture, that was my second semester, my freshman year. That was a Diamond Aircraft Katana, big Rotax snowmobile engine in it. A lot of fun to fly that aircraft. The end of 1998, that summer, I took my final checkout at Dawn Dubuque, had a great trip, great time, and we always kept in touch over the years. So fast forward to the next summer, sophomore year was very basic. I'm playing a slow pitch softball game against UNDAerospace, and the pitcher was Don Dubuque. He smiled, he threw me a nice ball. I smacked it out to the outfield, rounded first. I felt a pop on the ankle. I went down, and my cleat caught, and I hurt my ankle pretty bad. Don was right there to help me and get me up. But that was definitely a turbulent, stressful time in me. I'm here for accelerated courses in the summer. Now I hurt my ankle, and that fails to allow me to complete the accelerated aviation courses, which completely forced me to completely change my academic plans. I couldn't do this semester, I'm doing this semester, I'm doing that. It was a big, stressful, turbulent time because now I had a broke ankle. Everything changes. Unfortunately for me, Dr. Kim Kenville, she's still there, obviously. She was my advisor. It was quite reassuring knowing that she had my back. I told her my problem. She's like, yeah, get off the phone. Come visit me. Let's chat. She's been there mentoring me all the way through Delta. We still talk constantly. And just don't be scared to contact your advisors, especially now. Your professors, student services, both UNDAerospace and on campus, there's so many resources. They've seen this before, and they're there to help you. And they truly do have an interest in watching us all succeed. But I continued to remain involved. I worked hard for my academic endeavors. In spring 2001, I graduated from UNDAerospace, University of North Dakota. Life was good. I was a full-time flight instructor at university. I was married. My wife was attending grad school at UND. Airlines were hiring. Instructors are leaving quick. Trouble to have CFI instructors because they're all leaving for the airlines. They had all these brand new aircraft coming from Piper. They had this new technology called GPS. It was kind of neat. Instead of doing old school, you could just put in direct points, and it was a lot more efficient. And as Karen said, I was driving to the airport one morning to teach a lesson. I heard on the radio about September 11th, and everything changed. For me that morning, myself, a lot of our flight instructors, faculty, and students met in the flight instructor break room. That was the only TV we had, and we watched this live. We were all there for each other the next few months, just as you all should be now. You know, like Karen said, call family. You can FaceTime people or Snapchat with friends. Have Zoom conferences where all your friends log on. You can all visit and talk to each other, see what's going on. And again, get involved. Volunteer in your communities, diversify your portfolio. There's always people in need, and it definitely helps when interviews come. Don't sit idle. But this is always a very turbulent and stressful time. So 9/11 happens. What can I do to not be stressed, to help reduce stress, to keep me busy? As Jim Racer again said, don't be idle. What else can you do? Well, I decided I wanted to earn my MEI. My wife's in grad school, like I mentioned. I'm not in a hurry to leave. So I earned my MEI, I became a stage check pilot, and then I was eventually selected to be a supervisor of flight, or an SOF, at the airport. The lower picture is a Beach Baron. We used to have 2 of those back when I was going through. So I did part of my MEI in the Beach Baron, something fun, and allowed me to teach little higher performance aircraft. It had 2 300 horsepower engines. It had weather radar, it had anti-ice systems, it had oxygen. So all those together definitely helped me become a much more experienced and safer pilot. It also allowed me to teach and help that passion of my own students. It's quite memorable flying to places. I flew in Denver, landed Chicago Meigs Field, just had a lot of fun with that airplane. So during that time, as you go through Aerospace, you're with the same people a lot through the different flight courses. And for me, I was with my close friend, Professor Shane Daku, who's still at UND teaching. He also stayed busy, also diversified his own portfolio. He completed the CRJ course and talked me into doing it, so I completed the CRJ course. He did a flying weather modification job, and he also was fortunate to be selected for an internship where he flew a new Beech Premier corporate jet tracking electric tool crib, and is based in Grand Forks, and Aerospace helped with that aircraft as well, all as he was a flight instructor. So after we taught for 3 years, we got together and, where do you want to go? Where do you want to do? And we got together and we decided both to apply to the Regional Air Wisconsin. And at the time, they were exclusively flying as United Express. So I interviewed the day after him. We both got selected and both got awarded the same ground school. So there I am, definitely a little more than 20 pounds earlier. So in 2004, I was hired by Air Wisconsin Airlines. I went from UND Grand Forks right to O'Hare, so still a real busy airport. So Shane and me were training partners. We took the CRJ course, and it was quite straightforward and enjoyable. We were familiar with the CRJ systems. We're familiar with the operations since we've done it at UND. So that CRJ course is very beneficial. And again, we're both based at Chicago O'Hare. So again, life was good. We're flying around a regional jet all around the Midwest, East Coast, flew out to Denver a bunch. And then things change. We came on in 2004. Aerospace used to fly as AirTran Jet Connect out of Atlanta. They had about 10 aircraft that were based there. And that flying had just stopped, so all those people were forced to come back to United Express flying, which can be a little stressful. But Aerospace was one of the first United Express operators and really one of the first airlines to grow with the code share agreements with United. It's founded in 1965. It's a private airline. In 1986, it kind of joined the United Express. And then another stressful and turbulent time arrived is when United chose not to renew Aerospace's express flying. So as a junior pilot, still learning the industry, and all of a sudden, we don't have a contract coming up. Am I going to have a job? What's going to happen in the future? But Aerospace is private, and the owners invested in US Airways to aid in their bankruptcy exit financing. And they were able to secure a long-term 10-year contract. So with that, unfortunately, all 4 of our crew bases closed. So now people that have lived in base, like Appleton, Wisconsin, for 20, 30 years, now they were forced to commute to the East Coast. So that causes a lot of stress and turbulence for all sorts of people. The top aircraft on the top left, that's a Bach 146, is a 100-seat regional jet we flew. But that didn't go along with our merge, so that went, we did park those. So now you have a lot of flight crews being absorbed who were senior me, keeping me on reserve and towards the bottom of seniority. So it was kind of turbulent, not having choice of vacations, not having choice of schedules. I'm just kind of flying whatever's left over. And I was still happy to do it. Why? Because I had a positive attitude. I knew things will get better. In 2008, just like what Karen shared, hiring slowed, furloughs at Air Wisconsin, stagnation in industry, it was hit us all. So again, it's a very turbulent, stressful time. And just like 9/11, I asked myself, what can I do to make myself more marketable? We're all flying jets, turboprops, we're all earning the same hours. What can I do to set myself apart? I was talking to my wife and others, and actually reached out to Kim Kinville again, and graduate school was a good answer, something I've considered in doing. So I went ahead and earned a master's degree in safety with occupational safety and homeland security. It was definitely something I could use in the future and something that set me apart. So everything was going good at Air Wisconsin. I'd been there for about 10 years. And then 2013, there was a memo that came out, which hit the industry pretty excitedly. That Delta announced they would start hiring soon. So I went through and updated my application as close as I could, had my friends and other people in the industry look at it, see if they could see something I didn't see. I was selected for an interview. I was successfully hired about Thanksgiving time in 2013. And I swam in the hiring pool for about 6 months and then officially joined Delta in 2014. Being based in Atlanta the whole time, again, on the 717, 737, and now 75, 767. Stay involved with Delta, like I always stay involved, doing the new hire mentor program. Currently a Delta Propel program mentor, and I was selected for a standards position, which will give me some other experience here in the future. As Beth said, I still stay quite involved with UNDAerospace. I was planning to come back for the SAMA conference for a few different things, and also run our Aviation Alumni Advisory Board meeting. And like Beth said, it helps with the 141 accreditation and helps with the curriculum development. And we just make sure everything's going smoothly. There's a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes, but always know there's professionals out there in all the majors that come together and just make sure everyone is in good hands. It's a very turbulent, stressful time right now. And since I left Air Wisconsin, US Airways Express Flying, they merged with American Airlines, and then United Express chose Air Wisconsin to again be in a United Express family. So several bases closed, new bases opened up, and people have to change again. So I guess in closing, once again, Karen hit a lot of turbulent times. It all affects us differently. Industry continues to have these cycles of ups and downs, just like turbulence. Sometimes it's light chop, sometimes it's moderate, sometimes it's severe. And right now it's kind of severe, but it will bounce back. But having a true passion for aviation definitely makes these hard times easier. The pause button's kind of been pushed right now, but the process is going to continue. The important thing all around the world is people need pilots. Pilot shortage is real. It's going to happen. Try to have a backup plan when times are tough right now. Grad school, do something else. If aviation is not your passion, you want to go into, computer science or medical or whatever. Maybe explore that during the slow time. Definitely live within your means. Try to avoid debt besides education and housing if you can. As Ken Paul was challenged all those years ago, get involved, diversify your portfolio, and have a backup plan. Can't stress that enough. But hang in there, because calling yourself a graduate from the University of North Dakota and UNDAerospace, oftentimes it'll open doors, allows you to make connections, and gains respect in virtually every aspect of our industry. Many alumni throughout the world probably wear our UND wings, which I don't know if my picture's up, but I have my UND wings on my tie tack. You know, and it's very, very proud to wear those. Spent a lot of money getting those, and I'm proud of them. Never let your CFIs expire. I don't know how many friends have had that happen. But there's certainly better times coming up, smoother rides ahead, and just thank you again for hanging in there, and times will get better. So, all right, that's what I have. I think Mr. Jared is next.
Okay, thank you, First Officer Barnes. My name is Jared Herndon with Delta in New York City on the Boeing 757, 767 fleet. Coming up on almost 3 years at Delta. Some of you have probably seen me on campus with the ALPA Education Committee for the Pilot Union. I'm honored to be here to speak with you today and hopefully share some of the things that I have learned over the years and share some of the advice that was given to me when I was sitting in your seat. We'll start with the first slide. While Karen and Dave were already in their careers or started on their career path, I was still in high school. We had the dot-com bubble burst. I was growing up in the Seattle area that impacted the economy quite severely. My dad was unemployed because of it. And then we had 9/11 happen. My dad became unemployed again. Then we had SARS, which impacted the Seattle area due to our close relations with Asia. All of this while I was considering which career I wanted to pursue. I knew I wanted to fly, but I just wasn't sure if I could make that happen. So I started a job at a grocery store and went to community college during my senior year of high school, well, to earn and save money so I could get my private pilot's license. I got paid every Friday and I flew every Tuesday because of paycheck. 1 week's pay, did one flight lesson. While I was at the community college, local community college in the aviation program, the program chair gave me some great advice, such as, don't buy a new car, don't buy a house right away. Make sure I had a job all through college, try to do internships, extracurricular activities, get involved. And based on his advice and advice from many other pilots that I had met and become connected with, I looked at the University of North Dakota to continue my training and education. I was very impressed with the program, and most importantly, it was the lowest cost option at the time. The next slide. After high school, I finished up my associate's degree in private pilot's license out in Seattle and transferred to UND in 2004. Thoroughly enjoyed my time at UND from the first day. Some of my closest friends today are still people that I met during my first week on campus. I was a member of several student organizations such as SAMA, SAC, Student Government, and many others. And because of that, I strongly recommend that students get involved in college. That really helped me to build my network. No one in my family flew. I didn't have any connections to the industry, so I had to start from scratch. And that network has continued to expand throughout my career. While I was at UND, the economy started to improve after 9/11. Retirement started to hit the industry. At the time, it was age 60. There was lots of hiring towards the end of college. Students would even leave CFI ground school, I remember, to go start at a regional airline without even finishing their degree, which I definitely do not recommend doing. That quickly changed. After seeing the boom in bust cycles, followed by yet another bust in the airline industry my senior year, when several airlines went into bankruptcy, and also after hearing lots of negativity from airline pilots in regards to their lost pensions, massive pay cuts, etc., I decided I was going to change course, skip the airlines, and pursue a corporate flying job. During my sophomore year, I had shadowed corporate pilots at Costco out in Seattle during a mini internship, and I really enjoyed it. That's their one of their Gulf Streams down there in the lower corner. Next slide. In 2008, I graduated from UND with a commercial aviation degree and another degree in aviation management. I had been flight instructing my senior year, but I immediately left campus after graduation and went down to Dallas to get typed in a Learjet, which is from a scholarship I received at UND. Once that was completed, I went to Wichita, Kansas and started an internship with Hawker Beechcraft during the midst of a big boom for them. I had an awesome time. I was fresh out of college, flying brand new Bonanzas, Barons, King Airs, even Premier Jets, which is in the upper photo there. Flew them all over the country. They're brand new, most of them with less than 20 hours on the aircraft. I made really good money and I had an expense account. Life was good. And then everything started to change during the fall. Kind of fell apart. We had a strike at the factory, a round of layoffs. The entire country and world entered a severe recession. And come December, at the end of my internship, I was not offered a job with Beechcraft, which was the norm for that internship, and it was due to the economic conditions. I went back to UND. Thankfully, I had taken a leave of absence from my flight instructing job. Moved everything back up to Grand Forks. The only problem was I didn't have any students. They didn't have any students for me to teach. Slowly, I got one student, then a second student. I had to get a job at the Hilton Garden Inn just to pay rent to live in my friend's den. And then that spring, we had the Colgan accident, which out of that came a lot of major changes in the regional airline industry. Started to have mergers among the different majors, like Karen touched on. Also, the retirement age changed to age 65, which kind of set everything back. And therefore, I ended up flight instructing for 3 years. That wasn't the plan. It had never been the plan to flight instruct that long. And I couldn't get a job flying cargo or Part 135 or even with the corporate flight department without building much more time than I was earning and collecting as a flight instructor. So I decided that I would suck it up and go to the regionals that had just started flying to build flight time. And I'm kind of backwards. So next slide. In 2011, I was hired by Atlantic Southeast Airlines, commonly referred to as ASA, into one of the first pilot classes they offered after the recession. And that was thanks to the connections I had made at UND and networking at my internship, and also with flight instructors I'd stayed in contact from when I was a student. One of the flight instructors that I met as a student actually walked my application in, and I got a telephone call for an interview the next day. And then I had the chance to refer him for a position at Delta, and we're both at Delta now. So it's funny how your paths continue to cross over time, but don't burn any bridges, that's for sure. During my first year at ASA, we merged with ExpressJet. And that was followed by contentious contract negotiations between the different pilot groups and the company. The company even ended up requesting concessions at one point that we voted down. It was kind of stagnant. After 5 years at ASA, I had no hope really of upgrading to captain anytime soon. But I didn't just sit idle in the right seat. I started to pad my resume. I became a pilot recruiter, something that I ended up really enjoying. Became what we called an ambassador or mentor for college students for ExpressJet. You know what else happened? I totally fell in love with being an airline pilot. The flight benefits alone, being able to hop on a plane and go anywhere in the world, usually in first class, or else I didn't go. Would go with friends to Europe for the weekend or just go visit my family on the West Coast. That was awesome. And then being able to jump seat and get on any plane with any airline, going anywhere, even cargo planes like with FedEx or UPS. The tremendous schedule flexibility. I could pretty much take a vacation every month if I wanted to go visit family or friends or travel. And it was a whole lot of fun. So I decided that if I was going to be an airline pilot, how could I differentiate myself so I could get hired at a major and keep pressing forward? Next slide. That answer came in 2015 when I left ExpressJet my 5th year and started with Sun Country Airlines, because that was the next step, and it was, you know, since I couldn't upgrade to captain, it was one of the really the only options to make forward progression. However, that meant that I had to take a pay cut, but you know what, it was all worth it. I got to fly a 737 all over North America, spend the winters on the beach in the Caribbean, which when you live in Minneapolis is an important thing, and even go overseas on military charters. One of those pictures is me in front of a mosque in Abu Dhabi. I also went to Athens, Ireland, Kuwait. Again, I didn't sit idly by. I quickly became a pilot recruiter during my first year. Like I said before, something I really enjoyed and was happy to get back into. And Sun Country was looking to expand their recruiting force. So, right place at the right time. Again, continually improving myself and preparing for the next step. And then in this case, the next step was something I had really only dreamed about up until now, and it happened suddenly. Next slide. In 2017, I was hired by Delta Airlines in the midst of probably the greatest time ever in history for the airline industry. Life was great. Every airline was making record profits. There was lots of hiring, quick advancement. I felt crazy lucky to be hired onto the 757, 767 fleet immediately right out of training. I've flown all over the place, anywhere from Ghana to Brazil, and the future was looking very bright up until about a month ago. And then we have coronavirus, and you go, well, now what? Well, thankfully for me, I had listened to the advice I'd gotten all the way back in high school and from continually along the way from various people. I paid off my student loans. I did buy a car, but I bought a used car. I built up savings whenever I could. And I'm single, so I still have a roommate to share expenses with to keep those costs low. And I would pass that along to you, is to always have savings. Don't buy new if you don't have to. Live within or below your means and pocket the rest in the savings. But you can still have fun. There are a lot. I mean, I've traveled all over the world in the past 10 years. It's not like I've just sat around going, well, I don't have any money. There are inexpensive alternatives to have fun, especially in this industry. And because of that, you know, really, I think it's the best job you could ever have. Sure, it has its ups and downs, but if you plan accordingly, there's nothing better, in my opinion. And that's all I have for you guys tonight. Thanks again.
All right, well, I want to thank you for sharing your stories with us. A lot for us to think about and to take in. Very much appreciated. With our audience, I do want to mention we do have the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. If you do have any questions you want to ask any of the speakers, feel free to write those questions in there at this time. Just click on it and write your answers, and we'll take a look at those. Otherwise, I think I'm going to start asking perhaps some of the questions that I have on my mind. So, and you guys can answer however you would like. The first one, when you look back at your time at UND, what do you think you did? What actions help lead you to the success that you've had today in your professional career?
Well, I guess I'll start because of the gray hair and the seniority I've got going here. I think it really helped for me to come in with my private pilot's license ahead of time, because I got a little jump start. And then it was also very beneficial to stick around in the summer because the weather was better. And I got very involved in activities and made some really good friendships that I've kept in touch with over the years, because these liaisons, I have friends at American, United, all over the place, and we compare notes and help each other. It's a wonderful professional courtesy that is just expected from your alum. So that's my take. Dave, Jared, you might have more.
I think for me, it was being involved in student organizations that introduced me to SAMA, and that's actually where I first met Karen, who ended up doing my interview at Delta a couple of years ago.
I only pick the best.
So you never know who you're going to meet at conferences or the events that are on campus. And if you can get yourself into a leadership position with an organization, you're going to have more face time and exposure. For instance, with my internship with Beechcraft, I did the tour for the representatives when they came to campus to promote their internship. And I got to build that connection and show that enthusiasm that I had for the internship, which I think had a part to play in me getting an interview for it.
Yeah, I'll echo what the other two said. I'm not sure my picture's not coming up, but maybe that's better. I don't know. But definitely being involved allows you to meet all sorts of people. When I was at UND, I was real musical. I was in a lot of the choirs, a lot of the bands. That's where I met my wife. And we were all raised together, so we were very involved with the housing department. But college is a great time to go out and do something you want to do. If you like French, there's a French club. If you want to learn about different things in economics, there's all sorts of different ways to get involved and start networking. And the aviation industry is small. You know, it seems massive, but networking is huge. Like Captain New said, you know, going through the terminals, high-fiving your friends. Where are you going? Oh, I'm going over here. I mean, Jared also said, don't burn bridges. I've flown with some of my best friends. I've also had an old student who's senior me at Delta Airlines, and he was actually my CRJ sim partner at UNDAerospace. He was my MEI student, so he's senior me, and we chat all the time still. So networking's huge. When I come back to UNDAerospace and speak to different groups, including Alpha Ace Club, like with Jared, we always mention social media. Networking's good, but just a heads up, always pay attention to social media. You don't know who's watching or looking, and just go through your Facebook. Your MySpace doesn't exist anymore, but other things that are out there, and just always make sure you're watching that as well. But networking is a great opportunity, and definitely when we come speak at universities, come speak to UND, come talk to us. We love hearing questions and get to know face to faces with the names.
Okay, well, thank you. And Dave, I'm glad you mentioned the marching band. Dave and I went to school together, and I remember you being very active on the marching band. It's something I wish I would have done. You'd be interested to know this past fall, almost 30% of the Pride of the North marching band are our aviation students. So you started a great long-lasting tradition with Aerospace and the marching band. So we've gotten some great questions that have come in from the audience, so I think I'll move over to those. So the first one that I see is, what kind of steps can someone take if they get, I don't want to say stuck, transitioning between being a flight instructor and that regional airline career? So Dave and Jared, you might be best to answer that.
Well, like I said, I didn't expect to flight instruct for 3 years. That wasn't the norm when I was a student. In fact, in one flight course, I had 6 different instructors because they kept getting hired by airlines. So that was a surprise to me, but I became a stage check pilot. I also worked in the testing center. I did some research projects with the psychology department on pilot fatigue and pilot aging, just trying to be involved and not just go and fly a lesson, but try to do as many other things as you can to improve that resume, build that network, and continue to build flight hours.
Yeah, for me, while you're flight instructing, try to have fun too, because that increases your own proficiency and your own experiences. I went to Winnipeg a lot for UND, went down to Minneapolis during non-busy areas, either in the MSP or St. Paul downtown, some other airplane or different places down there. It was fun to get out of the Grand Forks bubble per se and go to different places. You know, just try to provide those fun experiences to your students, or as a student, bring your instructor along. For long Seminole cross country, we did a couple flights. I went back down to Iowa, spent the night in Des Moines, Iowa with the Seminole. It was a lot of fun, and then flew back with my instructor and got 2 lessons done on the next day. Obviously, it depends on aircraft availability, but just keep that passion alive.
Beth, I would add one more thing. As an interviewer, we really look for gaps in employment. So don't take a gap year. go ahead and continue to flight instruct. You get extra credit points on an application for being an instructor, for being a supervisor of flying, for being a chief pilot. Those are all showing leadership. So just keep it going, and you're building hours. You're never going to get better experience and education from being a flight instructor. I mean, you're anticipating mistakes before they're happening, and we appreciate that and give you extra credit for it.
All right, well, thank you.
Sure.
So this question's looking more towards the industry and what's happening right now in Congress and the passing of the CARES Act. So how do you feel about the significant aid package that the federal government will be providing to the industry, both in a positive and potentially negative standpoint? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a huge positive. We need that. It's going to be a good kind of bridge supplement. And as far as the negatives, there's always some strings that are attached. I don't really know all the particulars, but right now I'm just happy to have it. Dave, Jared, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, there's a lot of provisions and stipulations that make sure the funds go to where they're needed. So certain positions or whatever can't take that money and pocket it or use it for something else. It's very designated where it's going. Aviation in the United States is an essential service. That's why aerospace really hasn't been shut down. Especially with the aircraft, Jared and fly. Besides people, underneath your seats is cargo, and that's huge. We fly tons of U.S. mail. We have all sorts of different cargo we fly over. Obviously, we have passengers too, but that's another big business. That's another reason a lot of these flights are still going. Delta just announced about an hour or two ago on our news hub we publish for everybody that even our Delta flight products, they're manufacturing PPE or personal protective equipment. They're producing that, and then they're going to give that to healthcare workers. A lot of people are reaching out to different airlines, organizations, medical people, and they're flying medical people for free, trying to get them around the country where they need to be. So there's still a lot of operations going on. Next month I have 4 trips. 2 are kind of in limbo, but my last trip of the month, I have a regular schedule next month. And domestic, I'm not doing long haul flights, but all around the world, you guys have seen on social media, airlines are either stopped operations or parked. So it's not just the United States. It's unfortunate, but parking planes is part of a way to, maintain your cash savings mode. So.
So Dave, we do have a question from your former advisor, Dr. Kim Kenville. She wants to know, did you get to travel with the UND hockey championship team with the band?
So I'm in her class years ago, and I was a percussionist. I started in '97, and then the Pride of the North band was started the next year. So we were kind of the initial members. So in 2000, we were in Boston, we won. I'm sitting by this great lady. We were chatting, and she's like, "Oh, you're in aviation? You must know my daughter, Kim." So I was sitting next to Kim's mom. So I show up in Kim's class. She's like, "All right, who's David Barnes? That's you, right?" But it was a lot of fun being out there and representing UND in Boston when we went out there in Providence. But yeah, and again, Kim and me talk all the time. It's nice to keep in touch with people from your past, and we can help each other as we go along the industry. Hi, Kim.
Aviation is definitely a small world. We also have some alums tuning in this evening, and I think this question is probably on a lot of people's minds. So this attendee is a regional first officer. Their company is offering voluntary paid leave due to the coronavirus. Would taking a voluntary leave look bad to a mainline carrier when the time comes to apply? Thoughts?
I would say no. I would say no. You are helping your company. And like I said before, Delta's in cash preservation mode. So it's probably benefiting you and the company as well. And we would not look negatively on that.
Good, and here's another question that's kind of focused a little bit more on Delta, but in your opinion, what steps has Delta done during this downturn to set itself apart from some of the other majors to come out ahead after the pandemic passes?
Well, I'll start on that, and I'll say that what they've done to prepare has started many, many years ago with their financial expertise in building a lot of equity and reducing a lot of our debt. So when you line them up with some of the other majors, I think financially we're in a lot better shape, so we have a little bit more leeway. But we are burning through millions of dollars a day, so we're just hoping for the best that this the virus will have a shorter outcome. Anything else you want to add there, Dave or Jared?
I think you covered it.
Yeah, it's the history of Northwest Airlines and Delta Airlines, respectively. The leaders have seen this, have been the ups and downs, just like Karen's career, and they're, I think, in a very well positioned to manage everything. Our pilot union is ALPA. We're working close with our management on the Delta side, and together, hopefully, we can keep strong and be in a good position when this virus goes away.
So we have received a couple of questions. I know Karen, or Captain Huth, does serve as our Delta Propel liaison, and I know we've hosted a lot of great Delta days on campus the last 2 years. So any thoughts on going into the fall semester with the Delta Propel program?
Well, the Delta Propel program is just taking a pause right now. We're actually active. It's still running, but as I mentioned, we're trying to save money. So right now, our focus is just maintaining an essential schedule of flights. So most of our programs that cost a lot of money, they are still operational and active. They're just paused slightly. So our goal is definitely to get everything back up and running. We just have to take baby steps.
Well, I know we're happy to hear that because we appreciate all those Delta days on campus. David, do you have something to add? I know
Yeah,
you're
and also with
a mentor.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah. Again, sorry you guys can't see me, but so Karen is a liaison, and I'm below that. I'm a Propel mentor. So I have 4 pilots from various backgrounds that are assigned to me. I kind of talk to, and I was texting 2 UND pilots who were assigned to me today, and I know they're tuning in. So hello, pilots. I don't want to say who you are or anything, but also we're always here in the industry. I'm calling and checking on my pilots that respond to me, as well as other people in the program I know, sharing basic information, things I can share publicly. The same kind of what we're doing today. We're just sharing the same thing, you know, positive attitude, don't be idle, you know, things we talked about today. Just make sure they know that we're still looking out for them and they're still part of our Delta family.
Thanks. So another question, as you look forward, 10 years from now, what type of skills and experience do you think will be of most value for the industry?
I think flexibility is definitely key. And that's why it's good to be involved. You have good time management, skill building. Your intro and interpersonal communication skills are good because in the future, things continue to change, continue to develop. I've been in training 3 times with Delta in my 6 years, and every time you learn stuff, it's brand new. Whether it's learning how to fly down to South America or learning oceanic operations, it's always good to have a good background where you can learn and adapt things. So I think in 10 years, being able to adapt, know how to study, know how to isolate yourself when it's time to hit the books, that's a good key to have. And something you can definitely work on at UND and also as you move on in your career.
I would have to agree. We're not just looking at your flying skills. We expect you to be a good pilot, but we want you to have the whole enchilada. So we want you to have communication skills, which is very important, especially with the cell phones, and good interaction, facial expressions, good customer service skills, and good leadership and decision-making skills as well.
So good.
I would say if you're looking forward, 10 years or so, definitely some technology skills. If you're looking to have additional positions or be relevant in an airline, I mean, we'll continue to advance forward technology, and they always need pilots to help with those projects. But also, like Karen was saying, customer service skills are key. And if you can have any sort of customer service position now to develop those, customer service is never going to go away. We're always going to have that touch point with our passengers and be able to make that impression that keeps them coming back.
So good. I know we talk about networking is key, especially in this industry that really is small and everybody seems to know everybody. So what kind of advice would you have for students on how to effectively network and make those meaningful connections, especially if they come from, you know, a family that doesn't have any aviation in its background?
Well, over the years, I've frequented Women in Aviation conferences, the OBAT conference, the NGPA conference. I've gone to Oshkosh, Sun and Fun, and it's just a huge family of aviators that are all very willing to help, embrace, and nurture the next generation coming forward. Don't be afraid of that. Get yourself out there and expose yourself, and just throw your hand out to help, because that's what I did. And I had lots of mentors that helped me along the way.
I would say for me, not having any family in the industry, you know, and having to build my own network, what actually got me interested in SAMA initially was freshman year. I went to the SAMA conference and I saw that all these students had so much FaceTime with representatives and speakers and important people in the industry. And I said, I got to get in that club, because that's how I'm going to best meet people. The next year I was in SAMA and I was a speaker host for the conference. The following year, treasurer. The senior year, I was conference director. And I've met so many people through SAMA alone that I still know today. But going up and meeting people, handing out your resume, asking for business cards, sending them an email later, you know, starting to build that connection.
Good. Another question I have, actually a couple people have asked different questions about the airlines being really a global industry, and wondering if things like studying abroad or taking foreign languages, if those would be things to think about considering putting into their 4-year plan here at UND.
I would say absolutely. I just grabbed my daughter out of Spain when her study abroad program was canceled because of the virus. She was devastated because she's pretty accomplished in her Spanish language. And it's just another skill set that is valuable. I mean, I fly to South America. I flew a lot to Mexico. And if you're a speaker, I don't care if you're a flight attendant or a pilot, if you can interact with the customer, that's a huge customer selling point, customer service. And, you know, on layovers, they're a no-go item. I'll take a speaker with me anytime to keep me out of trouble.
Yeah, I think exactly that. If you're able to speak a language in a foreign country, sometimes being white, you're the only person there and everyone looks at you, but being able to share a couple words or at least try it, it does go a long way. And when you're interviewing, both at Aerospace and Delta Airlines, for me, I had a lot of non-aviation questions. They go through your resume and application, and like, so you're musical. Oh, what'd you do at UND? So I said I was a percussionist. I played the snare drum and the drum line and so forth, and I was in a lot of choirs. And one guy looked at me, he goes, "Mash or traditional?" And that's a way to hold the drumstick. And I said, you know, mash is great, but I like traditional with one hand flipped over in the power. And he's like, "Well, I've never shared this before, but, you know, I sing bass in a barbershop quartet and I'm a drummer." So right away, myself and this other gentleman had a personal connection in my Delta interview. And then the other two people that were doing the interview was like, "What? We didn't know that." So it was a real friendly environment. So if you can study abroad, no languages or whatever, this definitely makes you, again, more well-rounded and something you're able to use in real life. I wish I spoke Spanish. I know obrigado. I know that's thank you in Portuguese. I do a lot of South American flying, but I wish I knew more.
I had the chance to do 2 short study abroad programs over spring break, sophomore and junior year, to England and then also to Germany. Found it to be very valuable, and also made friends on those trips that I'm still friends with now, still in touch with. One of them happens to be my chief pilot now, so you never know who you're going to meet on events like that. But it helps make you a better citizen of the world, because as an airline pilot, you're not limited to just your daily 30, 45-minute commute to downtown like most people. We're going all over the world, and you need to be comfortable in those situations.
Thank you. Great answers. I know that's the one thing I regret, is not studying abroad or doing some of those activities when I was in school. This is a great question. You guys talked a lot about being involved while you were students at UND, but what type of activities are you involved with now other than just flying for your airline?
That's something that's fun with the airlines. When you're hired by Delta or other regionals, whatever, there's so many jobs and the possibility opportunities out there. If you want to go into training with a UND background, they'll gladly have you come teach ground schools or even teach in the flight simulators. At Delta, we use contract and our own pilots to do a lot of flight instructing and teaching. So once you're on the line flying for a little bit, there's no reason to go. You can't go in the training department, especially live in your base. You can just drive to the simulators, do a couple lessons, and go home. If you're a big political science fan, maybe a political science minor or a double major, with the union side of it, you can go into political affairs. There's all sorts of safety and security things which interested me. I could get involved with. We have jump seat committees. There's all sorts of committees you can get involved with, in addition to just being an airline pilot. So as you can tell from my background, and Jared and Karen, we always stayed involved. And that's definitely something I'd recommend it as you move on to your other jobs. Become involved, do more. You get a lot more out of your job that way and your career.
I know my kids ask me, Mom, why do you do all these other things? Why don't you just fly airplanes like your friends? And I had to think about that, and I said, you know what? Because first of all, being asked is a compliment. Not that I need a compliment, but it makes my career more interesting because I appreciate everybody else's job that much more. And I think it makes me a better, well-rounded pilot, and to understand who I'm working with and appreciate them more. So that's, I don't know, selfishly or not, I like having that knowledge.
Like I mentioned earlier, I've been active with the education committee for our union, ALPA. I've been up to UND a couple times, just providing that exposure to the industry for college students. I've done a recruiting event with UND in Minneapolis to recruit new students as an alum. I'm on the finance committee for NGPA, putting to use those accounting and finance classes from my aviation management degree, going over budgets, building budgets, approving them, etc. And partly because you get tired of sitting at home. Most of us only technically work about half the month. So that gives you lots of time to pursue other interests and be involved in other things.
So good. I've got actually a very good practical, timely question. So right now with the remote learning, UND has extended their ability for all students to do more SU, so satisfactory or unsatisfactory grading versus letter grades. Do you think this will have an impact on a student applying for a job with the airline if their transcript has a semester with quite a few, hopefully S's, but not letter grades? Do you think it will have an impact? Obviously, we know a lot of U's would not be good. So we'll think positive.
I'm not sure. I think the verdict's a little bit out on that because I know we do look at grades and we look at the major you're in and we kind of weight that. So if you think you're the type of student that could excel and get A's and B's, I would probably suggest passing on the S and go for the grade. But it's kind of too new to really say because you get certain amount of points and based on your academics, how far up the list you float.
Good.
So that's kind of a non-answer. I don't know. Don't sell yourself short and keep trying. Just study like you're getting an A is what I would say.
Yeah, no, it's a great question because it is a new thing for us to consider.
Right.
So many of you mentioned being double majors, and I know, Karen, you've got a minor as well. What would you recommend for either a minor or a double major to have along with the commercial aviation degree?
I would say use that to pursue something else you're interested in. I mean, if you're really passionate about music or something, maybe get a minor in music. For me, I chose aviation management because I was interested in management and business, but I didn't want to have that as my degree. It also kind of served as my backup at the time. It is a business degree, not a aviation degree. And no one's going to care that the major was aviation management versus strategic management or something like that. Plus, since I was pursuing a possibility of being a corporate pilot, it gave me that management and business background that would make me a better corporate pilot. That's why I chose that. But I would say use it as an opportunity to follow something else you're passionate about.
I would agree with that. Dave, I know you've got something to say too. Don't just get another degree just to have it. You better really want it. I would rather see you go into a trade that you really enjoy versus grabbing another major that you don't really love. So focus on your one solid major, get good grades in that, and then if you really want to do something else on the side as a backup, become an electrician or a plumber or something else that you really like. That's just my 2 cents. Dave, how about you?
Yeah, so again, I did safety, and it was a generic safety, not like aviation safety, but I'm always surprised how many pilots, especially captains I fly with, that have second businesses that might do real estate. They might take old cars and flip them, make them nice, and resell them. And, I mean, it's, if you do something else, like everyone was saying, just make sure it's something you could use in the future, because you never know what your interest might be 10 years down the road. Or I think it's definitely a good idea if you have the desire to do it, go ahead and do it. Right now is a good time to do that.
Great. Well, I know our time is almost wrapping up, so I do want to ask one final question of each of you to kind of summarize all of your great points and insights. What is the main piece of advice you have for a current student, a prospective student, a brand new alum facing this challenging time? And I think, Karen, we'll start with you and go right down.
Okay, well, you saw that I had a lot of battle scars over my 35 years. There's many ups and downs, but in the 35 years, I've never been without a paycheck. Even those 15 days I was on strike, I got a paycheck back. So ride it out. You have the gift of time. So you're going to come shooting out the back end of this virus, and the airline's going to maybe look a little different, a little smaller, but you're going to be just fine, because we need pilots, just like doctors. The medical field is an essential service. So is airlines. Businesses need the airlines to survive, and so do families to bring us together. So we're going to be okay. Just don't overreact. Don't panic. Stay studying. Stay confident. Don't waste this time just, sitting around. Be proactive and get yourself prepared for when you slingshot off the back end. Okay? And stay positive.
I think my advice, again, just be flexible. Like for myself, the flood, a hurt ankle, the economy, hiring slowing down, a lot of it's out of my control. There's nothing to really get all fussy or stressed about. Just like Karen said, just keep with it, keep improving your own personal skills. And right now, we're all going to come out of this. It's a little battery now, but I haven't seen anyone say it's going to last 10 years. I mean, it's going to come back. So just be patient, and the jobs will be there.
I would say, to echo what they've already mentioned, definitely study hard. Keep those grades as high as you possibly can. Karen asked me about my GPA at UND during my interview. So it's going to follow you for years to come. Try and keep it as high as you possibly can. And, be patient. Don't make any rash decisions. Time is on your side. And again, stay involved, because when hiring does start up again, the first couple waves, it's going to be all about having connections to be able to get that interview ahead of someone else, because you have the better references or the better recommendations.
Wow, well, I just want to thank you all so much for taking the time this evening to speak to us and to speak to our students. We really wish we were doing this live in person so that we could give you the well-deserved round of applause for all of your insights and ideas, but unfortunately I can't quite figure out how to do that on Zoom yet. We also look forward to having you back on campus as soon as possible, hopefully by this fall semester for sure. I'm sure SAMA 2021 is going to be bigger and better than ever, so really look forward to having you all back in Grand Forks talking to us live in person. But thank you so much for all of your advice and insights this evening. I do want to just put a quick plug. Oh, Dave, great quote here.
It's just one thing I'll talk about, and choose a job you love, and you'll never have to work a day in your life. It's fun flying over the ocean. It's fun flying domestically. It's a great job, a great career, and it's you're in a great place, perfect position here in the future.
Thanks. And with that, great way to end the presentation. And again, thank you for being with us, everyone. And we look forward to bringing you these speaker series every Thursday evening while we are sort of sheltering in our homes. So again, thank you, Karen, Dave, and Jared for coming in tonight and sharing with us. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.